Today promises to be an exciting day. Why? Because we're going to be focusing on essential leadership habits for business and for life. So I want to encourage you to call a friend and tell a friend that Habits and Money, we are on air. Now, I also want to say this. I want to thank over 40,000 persons who have subscribed to our two platforms over the last few months. I want to thank you from the depths of my heart for supporting this program, these platforms, and I want to let you know how much I'm grateful for that. I also want to reach out to the 70 plus persons, 70% plus persons who are viewing the program, but you have not yet subscribed. I want to encourage you to subscribe. It will definitely help the algorithm. And yes, once you find this content interesting, I want to encourage you to subscribe because you will be the first to be notified when we are on air. Now, I want to dive in a little bit into today's program. In today's program, we're going to be looking at a number of important topics. For example, one of the things that I genuinely believe is that every single person has in them a great idea that can be leveraged to make them millionaires. And I repeat this. I believe everyone has great ideas that can make them millionaires. The thing about it, having the idea is one thing, but having the habits that helps you to nurture that idea into reality is quite a different story. So today we're going to be looking at habits that can push you forward in business, in sports, and in life. To join me in today's conversation, I have two dynamic personalities. First, I want to introduce Peter Scott, and he is a theologist. In the event that you have never seen or heard from Peter, he is a theologist by profession. And one of his signature projects that he manages is the Legacy Chronicle Human Growth Program, where we focus on helping humans, helping his community to become the best version of themselves and to leave a legacy for life. With that, I also want to introduce my second colleague, and her name is Shivani Sinarang. And Shivani Sinarang, she's a project management practitioner, and she has so many other accolades to her name. What I know, she's very passionate about project management, and I do believe that project management has a tremendous role to play in business and in life. So I want to take the time to welcome both Peter and Shivani. How are you guys? How was the weekend?
Very good. Good. Good
Awesome,
for me. I'm back
awesome,
back here.
awesome. Always great to have you on stage. Now, to get the conversation rolling, I want to begin by talking about habits. I'm going to look at habit today perhaps from three different perspectives. We can look at habits in terms of how it can push you forward in sports. We can look at habits in terms of how it can push you forward in business, and habits in terms of how it can push you forward in life. One of the habits that I want to talk about is the habit of preparedness. Preparedness. I think very often that we wait for the opportunity and then become prepared to deal with that opportunity instead of us being prepared and allowing preparation to reach opportunity. So being prepared, it is so, so, so important. And I want to link this back to a statement I made early on. I do believe that everyone, and I genuinely believe this, that everyone has a great idea that can make them millionaires. The example that I will talk about is that we have developed a program where we call Pathway 5, and Pathway 5 really helps you to understand five unique approaches that you can use to position yourself to build wealth. In pathway one, we begin to look at things like having value that people value. What does that mean? Being value that people value. What does it mean? Let us look a little bit at the very first concept of having value that people value. This concept in of itself relates to the productive sector. Having value that people value in this context means that you may have a supermarket. And because you have that supermarket, people value it. Why? Because your supermarket provides what we call FMCG, which is fast moving consumer goods. Now, who needs fast moving consumer goods? Everyone needs fast moving consumer goods. So, in this context, you know that because in this particular context, you're having value that people value, you know for sure that it is a way to position yourself to build wealth. But guess what? You may sit and you may say, hey, if I can start a supermarket or a supermall, I can position myself for financial greatness. But knowing that you can do this is different from doing it. All right. And that's what I'm saying. Millions of people across the world, billions of people across the world, you have great ideas. But very often, you never execute on those ideas. Why? Because you may say that I don't have the disposable income to start a supermarket. I don't have the connections to raise the capital to start that supermarket, so I can start to position myself to make daily income, monthly income that can accumulate over a period of time and position me for financial greatness. So, and this again is another reason why we would talk about the role of the proactive leader, because the proactive leader helps you to think ahead, and the proactive leader helps you to see beyond the problem. Now, how do we apply proactive leadership to this concept? You know that if you open a supermarket because of the community that you're in, you can generate millions of dollars on an annual basis. You know this. There's absolutely no doubt about this. But now that you know this, you don't have what it takes, the right habits to take action to make that become real. And many persons become stuck in the problem zone. You're not trained to see beyond the problem. Well, what I want to do is to give some examples of things that you can do, habits that you need to form when you see possibilities, but then you're not acting on it because perhaps you're not trained to act on these great tasks. Now, in the context that you're thinking that I can open a supermarket, and I'm just using this as an example, but then you don't have the money to invest in starting a supermarket, the habit of seeing beyond problems can come in very useful. And let me share what that could be. In cases where you are not pre-qualified to access debt financing, you may not be pre-qualified to access equity capital or pre-qualified to access, credit financing. You have a concept that you can use to your advantage that we call group economics. Now, what is group economics? Group economics means that you have mommy, daddy, uncle, aunt, you have friends that you can bring together. You can share your ideas with them of what you want to do. And that in of itself can help you to get unstuck, because in sharing your idea, once you're trained how to make your pitch, all right, you're going to get people and persons to buy into your pitch. And buying into your pitch means that they like your idea and they're likely to make financial investment into your idea. All right. So the habit that trumps here is the habits of being prepared. So very often you want to be successful in business and in life, but being prepared means that you can see all of the moving parts that are going to position you to be successful. Again, that's why we are hosting these type of programs, to ensure that you get access to the kind of information, the kind of training that can literally transform your lives. All right, so I'm going to pause here a little bit and really push you to start thinking that in the event that you have big dreams and hopes and aspirations, you don't have the capital, you can use group economics. If you don't know how, I want to encourage you to reach out to us, and we will be happy to provide you with the mentorship, the coaching, the support. All right. I want to also emphasize this. In the event that you need access to capital to move your vision forward, again, I want to encourage you to reach out to us. Now, when you look at the screen, you're seeing one of our websites, which is Pitch Deck 101 LLC. What I want you to do, if even you don't want to reach to me, I'm going to point you to links that you can go to on our website to get in contact with our community. So when you go to Pitch Deck 101 LLC, you're going to see drop down. You can now come to what we do. When you press on what we do, this page will come up. I want you to scroll down and you will see referral links. So one of the links that you're going to be pressing on is MB Capital. MB Capital is one of our business partners, and today they have allocated over $100 million to various types of businesses. So of course, if you want capital and you need a beneficiary, I want to encourage you to go to this site, go to that link, and you can definitely get in contact. So you can go through me. This is my link. You can go straight to that link. The second link that I want to encourage you to go to is Fund and Grow. Now, when you go to Fund and Grow, our partner here, they have allocated over $1 billion, to various types of businesses. If you look right here, you will see this is evidence of the kind of funding that they have provided to businesses. So you don't have to struggle with a great vision, a great idea, saying that I don't have access to capital, I don't have access to a community to help me. Make contact with me. All right, I'll be so happy to put you in contact with the critical stakeholders that can help you access the capital to make your vision real. And this is anywhere in the US we can give you this type of support. So with that being said, I'm going to pause for now, and I'm going to turn to my colleagues to have them share their ideas in terms of what is essential habits, essential leadership habits for business and in life. Shivani, I'm going to start with you.
Thanks, Gary. Monday morning.
Well,
Yeah. Nice being here. Now we're speaking about leadership and the role that leadership will play in projects in business. And of course, we may have been doing it one way over a period of time. And how do you change that habit? How do you create the habit then? What do you do? So of course we'll say you have to learn. Once you learn something, you can create it as a habit over a period of time. It all starts with, if you don't know, you wouldn't be able to do it. So you have to first learn it, and then when you learn it, you have to practice it. And then eventually it can form a habit for yourself and for others. But leadership, in trying to understand what can help people to grow in your team and grow in business, I want to discuss it from 2 points. You have command and control leadership, and you also have servant leadership. Command and control and servant leadership. So some examples in projects, let's say, would we look at handing out detailed task lists? So if I'm the leader, I'm the project manager, and I have to give out or hand out detailed task lists that all of you all here, would we say that it is a command and control leadership that I'm practicing, that is a habit that I'm forming, or is it that I'm forming servant leadership? And the answer is command and control, because I'm simply giving you out the detailed task list, exactly what you have to do. And I say, okay, Gary, you got to do it. I don't even have to say you got to do it. Once I give you a detailed task list, that is definitely a command and control leadership trait that you have, that's your habit, that's what you have developed, command and control. So let's say you are doing administrative work for team members. And I know just before we came on, we discussed, one of our colleagues, and the amount of work that they may have to do. So let's say now you as a leader, you are now taking up the role of doing administrative work for people, for your staff, for your team. Would we say that is command and control, or would we say that is servant leadership? Now, it is said that it is servant leadership, right? Because you are doing the administrative work for your team. I'm not too supportive of that idea always. I'll say you have to look at the culture and you have to look at the environment, because I don't want now to start to do administrative work for Peter and I can't really lead properly, because then I'll be doing his stuff and then I can't get to do my stuff. So I have to be very careful on that as well. But that is servant leadership. We've been speaking about the project Gantt chart for many weeks now, and all of us will know about the Gantt chart. So the Gantt chart is, if you place it, the Gantt chart lists for you everything that you have to do and tells you everything, right? In a nutshell, in a project. So if I simply place it on the wall, so I stick up the Gantt chart to share that now with everybody on the wall. Would we say that is command and control, or would we say that is servant leadership? The answer is it is command and control, because if I simply place something on the wall as the Gantt chart and I'm not explaining it to every member of the team or everybody, then that is not me trying to bring information. I was just saying, I'm putting it up there, who see it, see it. That is command and control still, and not a servant leadership way of doing things. Because the Gantt chart is something that everybody will not be able to use and understand. So command, sometimes we lead in and we don't understand what we are doing. Simply just say, okay, well, look, the information is there. The information is there for certain types of tools may simply not be the correct way to do it, which is if you want to practice servant leadership. That may be more command and control. So these are two ways, the command and control and the servant leadership. If you want to look at how do you lead, servant leadership, as we said a couple of weeks ago, is ensuring that you give the team necessary tools that they can function on their own without you having now to tell everybody what they have to do. So every situation is different. And yes, you may want to develop habits, but you have to look at what will work in what situation. So one size doesn't always fit all for me at all. I just wanted to share the differences with a command and control and a servant leadership, and to still understand that there's the need for command and control at times. You have to look at the style. So developing a habit, I can't go and always say, this is servant leadership and this is what I'll practice all the time, Peter. You may have to go back to something else. So thanks for that, Gary. Command and control versus servant leadership and how you build it as a habit also.
All right. I do believe it's two great concepts, command and control and servant-driven leadership. Shivani, just a quick question I want to put to you. I do believe that, or I do see, there are many leaders today that they use the command and control very often. I see in many cases, because it is not explained, it leaves the room open for underperformance. In the case that who you're delegating the task to do not fully understand it. But how would you view it in the context that you put up that Gantt chart and you are placing it in the hands of experts? How would you relate to that? In the sense that they are expert, they understand to read a Gantt chart, and they have years of experience behind it. How would you relate to that?
So excellent. They are subject matter experts, as you say, they must be able to understand the Gantt chart, right? And if they know it's a project, and they will understand that tool. However, if they have not contributed to the content of the Gantt chart, and if we all didn't sit down together and say these are the tasks and this is what we can do, and all these great stuff, then it is still command and control, because it's all what I as the project manager, or I as the leader said that we should do. So then that is still not servant leadership. Servant leadership is, yes, this is what we have to do, but you have contributed how we are going to do it. So if they contributed how to do it, and I put it up on the wall, and their contribution, everybody know that they were all stakeholders, they had a contribution, definitely task leadership, servant leadership. If not, we still in between the command and control. It is still command and control.
Okay. All right. Great points. I now want to open up to Peter to share your thoughts on what are essential leadership habits that people need to form to succeed in business and in life. What are those habits that you think stand out to you? You're mute.
All right, there we go. All right, so just good morning, Siobhan and Gareth. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here, especially on a Monday morning, to start out the week early in the morning with these kinds of conversations is refreshing. Brings all the energies, the creative energies, alive for us to tackle and to be productive. But where the question is in mind, habits and leadership. It is something that, as we look at from our standpoint of the human growth development, human growth master planning, and having individuals look at life as a system. And as I say, in regards to habits, there is, just basic three fundamental points that I want to mention here as foundational to what I'd like to contribute today. And because as we think about life, one of the things that I do recognize, even as we communicate our master plan technique, what we call our helping individuals to formulate somewhat of a strategy in how they approach their own personal growth extended into family and community. There has to be a sense of definition, because a lot of times individuals are entering into a particular objective without having a clear definition of what it is that they need to do. And even as I was just tapping into what Shivani was saying, and about an individual a leader putting a chart out, but then if individuals don't understand what it is or what the chart means, then there can be a sense of individuals, those who are responsible to do certain things, are not effectively doing what they're supposed to do, because there is this disconnect in what this means. In the broader sense, that is what I do find, where individuals are approaching life from their human growth, and a lot of times the definition of basic concepts is not arrived at, and because of that, the end result will not be as successful as it's supposed to be. So the first concept that I'd like we address in master planning, if you're going to create a master plan, then what is the definition of the terminologies within that plan? And a basic concept, a very basic concept that we don't think about, even though we're doing this thing every day, is a thing called life. So the question is, what is the definition of life? What does life means to me? If I should break down life into a language or something that I can understand, or a terminology or an expression or a meaning, a definition. What is life? What is it that I'm talking about where life is concerned? Because if we can build that basic platform, then we can build other things moving forward. And if I can have that definition with a company of people that I'm working with, and we all agree that this is what we're dealing with, then we can now begin to accelerate, find greater impact, and have greater effect, be more effective in our collaborative efforts. So we formulate our definition of what life is. The Greek life, there are so many definitions from the Greek language what life is. Life is one of the words that is used to describe life in Greek is bios, and there are a couple more. But in general, if we're going to talk about life, what is life? So our definition of life is the system of continuity. It's a system of continuity that protects, preserves, and propagate itself for the purpose it is designed to serve. Right. So we want to lay that as a foundation. If we're going to talk about growth, development, everything that we're doing it within the parameters of what we call life. And what is life? Life is a system of continuity. Life is the system of continuity that protects, preserves, and propagates itself for the purpose that it is designed to serve. And that sounds like a mouthful, right? It can be, broken down in simpler terms, but you see, life is this blanket, this broad blank canvas, I would say. Life is this huge blank canvas that everything that we are going to do, we have to use this material to create it. So what are we then creating with this thing that we're calling life? Which leads now to the second point that we would want to just lay some foundation. Life, the material, is going to create 3 other or 4 other areas that we're going to build. There's some structures coming out of the material, and it is going to be our health, our wealth, our relationships, and our appointments. So the system of continuity that protects, preserve, and propagate itself for the purpose that it is designed is going to look like our health, our wealth, our relationships, and our appointments. And that now becomes the framework of everything that we see around us. And when we understand the way, which now comes to the third point, I know that this is broad, but this just gives some spectrum. When it now comes to the way how life unfolds as a habit, how life unfolds in 2 particular ways. It folds in a linear direction, and it unfolds as a cycle. Now, the Human Growth Master Plan techniques now empowers our community to use this framework of defining what life is, to understand the way life is structured, and the way how life unfolds. So those 3 concepts: defining what it is, defining the structures within it, and how it unfolds. Now, when we have that basic framework, now everything else that we see around us, now we look at that from the point of solving problems. and we are now going to focus on solving problems. And we use this because it's not everybody that is within life is focused on the development of humanity. There are institutions, there are people just as though we are sitting here right now, who their entire systems is designed using the same words that Shivani used a while ago, but for a different end result, to control. But it is not control in the sense that they are taking charge in helping individuals to do what they need to do better. It is control as it is to dominate. And that in of itself is a counter practice to what life is designed to do. And so hence, this is why we have the chaos and the problems and all the fallouts, the wars, the all the maladies that we see where life is concerned. It is because we have two set of ideologies at work. But when we understand, when we can come to, and this is why the definition is important, because somebody might be, you might be in partnership with somebody who is his definition of what life is totally opposite. The outcomes that he or she is looking for is totally opposite to what you are doing, but yet still you're trying to formulate a progression. So in just, let me just end this portion of my dialogue, is that you got to define it, what life is. If we're going to build and we're going to build habits, leadership, you got to define it, and everybody has to agree on what it is that we're talking about. We got to have the structures of life, which is basically health, wealth, relationships, and appointments. And then we look at how it unfolds, how life unfolds, which unfolds either in a linear projection and as a cycle. And that basic construct, we can now build everything. And life itself, the progression of society, is built upon those basic constructs.
All right, Peter. Thanks for that share, Peter. And I see that the word command and control is being used pretty often. Great share. I want to speak a little bit on essential leadership habits, business and life. And I want to point out 3 habits that I think is essential, regardless of if you're in business or you want to increase, your growth in life. And do take notes of these habits. 1 is thinking ahead, and 2 is seeing beyond problems, and 3 is master the ability to take informed actions. I do believe that these 3 habits can be a springboard that can position you for greatness. And I want to just give another explanation. I give an example early on. The next example that I want to give, and the ability, the whole concept of thinking ahead, the whole concept of seeing beyond problems, the whole concept of putting yourself in a position of strength to take informed action, it represents a state of preparedness. All right, it represents a state of preparedness. And I want to bring it to an example of sports. Now, let us suppose that you are playing a sports. It might be basketball, it might be football, and you want to win that game. You and your team, you want to win that game. What does it take to win that game? Are you thinking ahead? Are you looking at the players that you're going to come against? Are you learning their styles? Are you assessing their strengths and their weaknesses? And are you developing your game plan that can give you the competitive edge? That is part of preparedness. And that is definitely thinking ahead and helping yourself to see beyond problems. and helping yourself to take informed action to achieve a desired end results. So these are three essential habits that you need. I want to share some personal experience with you in terms of sports. One of the sports that I participate in is combat sports. I practice martial arts, and the particular art that I practice is Shotokan. Now, in preparing for battle, what this preparation looks like in this context? For me, it represents every day or several times a week, you are to go through various type of katas. For example, I some of the kata that I practice regularly is Heian Shodan, and Heian Shodan has 22 moves. These are not just moves; these are moves that really helps you to understand how to defend yourself, how to attack, and how to integrate, defend and attack to get the upper hand in any situation. So I would spend between a half an hour to an hour on a daily basis preparing myself, going through kata after kata. The second kata that I practice on a regular basis is Heian Nidan, and Heian Nidan has 26 moves. And as you go through those moves, because they are not just just for the sake of moving and movement, these are moves that really helps you to understand how to integrate it into a combat fighting situation.
Mhm.
The next kata that I would learn on a practice on a daily basis is Heian Sandan. Heian Sandan has 20 moves. Again, all of these moves are designed to achieve a specific end result. It's all part of preparedness. All right. The next kata is Heian Yondan. Heian Yondan has 27 moves. All right. Then we have Heian Godan. Heian Godan has 23 moves. So I'm going through these different katas to really help you to understand that regardless of if you are playing a game of sport and you want to be successful, or you're in business and you want to be successful, or you're in life and you want to be successful, what are your habits looking like? It wouldn't be enough for me to say, I know Heian Shodan, I know Heian Sandan, I know Heian Yondan, I know Heian Godan, and I'm good enough to go do battle and win the battle. That's where the ego comes in. But being prepared means that you're not only learning how to defend yourself against the attacker, you're taking the time to understand the attacker. You're taking the time to understand their strengths and their weaknesses. You're taking the time to understand opportunities that you can capitalize on in that battle. The same principle applies to business. So you want to be successful in business. Are you thinking ahead to be successful in business? Some of the things that you should be thinking ahead in business about is human resource, technical resources, and capital resources. Are you is this a habit that you're practicing? You see, very often you start that business, but then because you didn't think ahead of the essential human resources to move the process forward, you start the business and the business is now compromised because you don't have the right human resources. So these are essential habits for you to have. You start the business, and because you didn't think ahead, you underestimated the availability of the technical resources to help you get the job done. And because you underestimate the technical resources to move that vision forward, the vision is compromised. Habits. To be successful in business, they say success leave clues. And what are those clues that you are adopting into your habits, into your business practices that's going to push you forward in business? To be successful in business, you need capital resource needs. But many persons, you are starting the business And then you are trying to figure out now, how am I going to position myself to get capital? And depending on where you are in the world, it may be a nightmare just trying to get access to capital because you're not the expert on financial instruments. You may not know how to develop your game plan to access creative financing. Because creative financing, you don't have the debt obligation, you don't have the pre-qualification as your barrier, but then you're not the expert because you didn't think ahead. And thinking ahead brings you to this point where you recognize where you're at, where you need to go, and it helps you to identify how to get there. The how to get there is where you train the mind. This is another habit of asking yourself, how can I get beyond the problem? I may not have the human resources to move the vision forward, but how can I get beyond this problem? I may not have the technical resources to move this vision forward, but how can I get beyond this problem? I may not have the capital resources to move this vision forward, but how can I get beyond this capital issue? So seeing beyond the problem is a habit that you have to practice, because so many people have that $1 million idea, that $1 billion idea, that never get to the point of seeing beyond the problem, and they get stuck in the problem zone. Our role here is to provide you with a content of information that will shift the way you think and really provide you with a content of information that you can at least say, hey, I can do this, I can take some action. And I'm going to come to that now, because when we talk of informed action, it's different than taking action. Yes, you need to take action and take massive action. I think Tony Robbins invented the term take massive action. And I see justification in saying that, because when you take massive action, you sometimes you don't know what works or what is not going to work. But when you take massive action, guess what? You're likely to get the results that you want. But what we talk about is not massive action. We talk about informed action, which is different to what Tony Robbins is talking about. Informed action is when you recognize that you are not the subject matter expert on the selection, recruitment, and placement of the human resource. You recognize that you are not the subject matter expert in technical resources management. You recognize that you are not the expert in capital resource management. You recognize that. And you're honest with yourself to say that I don't have this body of knowledge. But you're smart enough to say to yourself also that I can surround myself with the brightest minds that can be mentors, that can be coach, that can be sponsors, and we can build a supportive community. I don't have to know everything. And that in of itself is now helping you to take inspired, informed action to achieve desired results. So these 3 habits, you need them. The habit of thinking ahead. Don't wait until your backs are against the wall and then you say, I wish, I wish, I wish. The habit of seeing beyond problems, because it gets you unstuck from the problem zone. Many persons go to their maker with their dream. As a great man once said, the richest place in the world is the graveyard. When you apply these techniques, you don't have to go to the maker with your great $1 billion ideas, because you're training the mind to see beyond the problem, and you're training the mind to take informed action. And that is building relationship with critical stakeholders that can help you move the vision forward. Again, that's why we host this program, and I want to encourage you in the event that you need to learn more about this, because on these platforms, we can only give high-level overviews. It takes some time to go into the finer details and to really help you navigate whatever reality you're encountering at the moment. All right? But this morning program is really to give you some motivation and to help you to see it's possible. All right? Life is great. It depends on your perspective and your frame of mind. Life is great. Shivani, I want to turn to you and have you chime in here. All to you, Shivani.
Thanks, Gary. Wonderful topic to keep speaking about, which is habits. How do you develop these habits? What are the habits to develop for good leadership? And as you keep saying, it's a practice, right? First of all, you have to know what it means, like what Peter was talking about, or it, what does it represent? And then you have to develop it. So the only way to develop something is through practice. You can't just sit down here and learn it. You have to practice it. You learn it first, but then you have to practice. We call it transferable skills. Now, this is a big thing for me, transferring transferable skills. And you can only get this with practice, as we are saying. So I look for opportunities to practice it. People might think I'm a little crazy, but I want to practice it. For example, a practice or a skill that we need to develop more in leadership is empathy, right? You see, a lot of times persons don't have that. And just last week, I was chatting with somebody, and what I realized that they believe it is a sign of weakness. If you are empathy, you're showing empathy, you're sympathetic. It's because they're not understanding it properly. They're not being trained in that leadership style. They have been trained more in the command and control. And yes, you speak nice, and I'm in charge, and that kind of nice way, right? So empathy is something that you need to understand what it is. It is not a soft skill. It is not saying that you are weak when you want to become more the empathetic leader. It is really your ability to understand what the person is going through. Now, when people come to you and they're they're very reactive about a situation, sometimes you as a leader might say they're disrespecting you. But you have to remember, look at the big picture here, right? Why is this person reacting? And it's not responding, they're reacting to a situation in a way. They may disagree with what you are saying. Remember, this is a conversation, it is not an attack on somebody, right? So, this is how we have to think as the supervisor, as a manager, as a leader. When people come to us and they are very reactive to a situation, what do I do? Do I flare up? I mean, I could do that very easily as well, because sometimes the situation you really want to know what these people come in with, right? But I have to listen. And then when you realize that you are listening and you're really being more empathetic, what you realize happening, Gary, you realize now that you are probably wrong, or your perspective on the situation needs to be changed, because that person is it's a real situation, and they're angry probably, and you didn't even think that you were behaving in that way, right? But it's just trying, as you say, think outside, think in that situation, think, why is this person reacting like that? Sometimes it may be a deeper situation that needs some help. They need help. And you, so in your world, fancy world, Gary, you only thinking about your watch and your clothes and all of that. You forget now that, hey, let me listen attentively to this person before they trip, because it is a serious, serious thing. So I myself, I like to talk about, we call it in Management 101, MBWA, managing by wandering around, right? Which is, you might think that I'm not doing anything and you're just walking the floor. But I am observing, and I might have a little chat with somebody, and that is helping me to practice empathy, right? Because you can't just learn it from a textbook or learn it from a talk here. You have to be able to practice it. So it's a very interesting point, empathy for me. It is a skill, it is a practice that more and more people have to develop. How do you develop it? You develop it by just going into different situations. My take on it too is put myself in situations that is outside of my comfort zone. So it must be outside of my comfort zone. And go with people that you're not, it's different, and they'll really react in a different way. Test yourself. Test yourself. Don't go with people who will agree with you. Go with people and try to practice it, that will always have. So as I'm saying this, it's two persons that I can always go by. Always go by, because they'll always disagree with everything that I'm saying. So I like to go by them, because I get to hear a different point and then, go again, kind of thing. So I force myself. I'm not coming by Peter because Peter might agree with me, right? So I say, let me go by somebody else that will give me some disagreement, some heavy disagreement. Peter, we'll come and we'll test that with you, right? So empathy is something that you need to develop. You need to develop this. Thanks, Karen.
Okay. Well, you've made a number of important points. And Shivani, I know you may see this also in the academic world. I think sometimes what comes across as a disagreement may also be perhaps uh, a disadvantage of the project. In the
Yeah.
academic world, one of the things that we have seen is that any process you're creating, any process, there will be advantages and there will be disadvantages. I could recall going through my entire academic programs, whether it's international business, whether it's marketing, whether it's HR, whether it's environmental, organizational management. You always have this advantages and disadvantages. That's one of the orientations that we have. And sometimes I think when you see um, a different view, which might be disadvantage of the very concept that you may be presenting it. And I'm seeing a whole lot of other weakness, but as time progresses, we will talk about it. But I love some of the points that you would have made, uh, which another point that you would have made is that when you come across with being too empathetic, you are perceived to be soft. And that is true. What I want to say on that point, that is true, it is so true. And one of the things that I've learned also is that there is no one style that can really help you in managing people because people are so dynamic. And what I've learned, even the people sometimes that responds to empathy, sometimes you have to put them in a situation for them to respond to command and control because at some times that's the only thing that is going to get them to move forward.
Yeah.
So you, the individual who is the leader, I do believe they have to learn empathy because today I think that empathy is not necessarily as common as perhaps it used to be. And what I want to put alongside empathy is emotional intelligence. And I like emotional intelligence because guess what? Sometimes one tend to believe that if you are emotionally intelligent, it means that you are oriented, you're sensitive before you respond. Yes, it's all of that. But guess what else? I do believe that a person that is emotionally intelligent is what I call self-aware. All right. So I bring two things here: self-awareness and self-control. And guess what that can help you to do? I can be the most empathetic person right here, right now, all because I'm exercising self awareness and self control. But I can switch up in an instant and I can go completely 180 degree. And guess what? In a split second, I can come right back to the empathetic self. It really requires a lot of self control to be able to do this, a lot of self awareness. And I think it's very, very useful skills in sports and in business and in life. I find myself talking to my young boy a lot, and in terms of controlling that authoritative approach. And it's not that you don't want to be angry, it's not that you don't want to be authoritative, but you want to know you have super control and it is you telling it when to activate, not it telling you
Mhm.
when to activate. And I think that's what makes, um, emotional intelligence and what you call your term, you call it Shivani, empathetic leadership. I think that's what makes it so important. So I think having these habits, owning these habits, mastering these habits is so important. You're right, Shivani, it has to be taught. And we don't have a lot of academic books today that is helping you to really, you know, present a strong thesis around teaching empathy and all of that. But I love your points. Great points. And Peter, your thoughts?
Well, I was just listening to both what another dialogue from both of you, and I'm looking at it from the backdrop that the chaos that is in our world today. And as you mentioned, well, I'm going to differ in the sense that the thesis for empathy, uh, it's in church. It's in church, but they don't go here. That's why they don't know, right? The religion, most religion, yeah, most religions, they, if you just think about most religions and why the practice of religion is important as a part of the dynamic process by which life is distributed, right? Because the hard tasks of getting the job done has to be contained in how you get the job done. And
Peter, I love what you say, but I just want to pause you a little bit. You're right. I think that the body of Christ and religion in of itself teaches you empathy.
right.
But my brother, I have been in close proximity with, you know, some of the religious leaders for all my life.
The saying it is not it's for doing it, Gary.
Exactly. Exactly. It leaves so much more to be desired, my friend. You we talk about this all the time, and that's why you know we are counting on you to be the transformational leader in
What
this
the
field.
make here is that the body, it's there. You understand what I'm saying? It's not only in Christianity.
Okay.
Buddhism also, speaks about this. Um, Confucius speaks a lot about this, about being empathetic, about treating people with fairness. But the human person, in his drive to achieve from the perspective of the singular cell, that anytime, whenever a cell becomes a singular, it becomes cancerous because it is not now acting in the interest of the other cells that are around it. And we know that cells is the fabric by which all the tissues and all the entire body is formulated, which goes now into the point of what or what we're trying to say, where foundations, so the three elements of the foundations of life definition, and I like what Chevrolet was saying, that walking the floor, because different perspectives of the very same thing exist. Putting the chart on the wall without explaining to the person who has not yet developed that language to understand that this is what this means, then that person, and then we're not expecting that person to perform when the language that they're looking at, it's like French. And now there is tension in the office because the person might not have that emotional intelligence to come and ask, I don't understand that. And now you're wondering, the individual is wondering now, is putting pressure on an individual who doesn't know how to respond accordingly. And so the foundations in our concept now, the foundations of definition. So I like what Shivani says. So she would just walk the floor just to see how people are doing, just to get a consensus of seeing the various responses, because now she can get a measurement or test the temperature of what is happening so that we all can be on the same page. Because once we have the foundation of life definition, the fabric because we're all in this organization, the fabric of the environment of what we're working with. If we can understand the fabric of environment of what we are doing, then everybody will know where to cut their piece and how to sew their piece, so that at the end of the day, they have a piece of garment that everybody is going to wear and feel satisfied. So we need to have the foundation of life definition, which in the human growth master plan process, and as we break it down into the master plan technique, definition of life, as I mentioned a while ago, I gave my broad definition of what life is as a system. But then life, we do understand from the Greek definition, is three words, three separate words, and that is the problem with the English language, is that you have just one word that has a blanket statement that tries to define broad, broad, broad spectrums. So when we have only just one word to explain what life is, the Greeks understand that life cannot be defined by just that one word. So the Greeks says life is bios, which has to do with biological life. The Greek, when they are treating life, they have another word that is psyche, which is the word that we get psychology from. So we understand that life operates in a psychological frame, a biological frame, a psychological frame. And then they had a third terminology, which is zoe, which is the spiritual, the eternal, or the divine. So when we can begin to break down the definition to a more a workable practice, by which now we understand, we can now begin to go into the structures, compartmentalize different structures. So when I say life, when Shivani walks the floor and I should say life, somebody will say, which part? Are you talking about bios? Are you talking about Suke? Are you talking about Zoe? And when we can come to agreement, oh, I didn't realize because I was over here, I spent the whole month working on Suke when you meant Zoe. And at the end of the day, there's conflict because the bottom line was not reached, because individuals did not have the foundation of definitions. And so now we can't go into the element of structures. We're not going in the element of structures now because we are building complete structures over there. And when we come together, we realize that we're using the same fabric, trying to get to the end result, but we are developing in our silos. We have developed conflicting structures that did not equate to the bottom line at the end of the cycle. And Gary, this is why the world is in, why this is why you have a war in Palestine. This is why you had a war, well, these two exist in war. This is why we have conflicts in families, conflicts with even myself, because my mind is saying one thing and my body wants something else and my heart is, all these conflicts are going on, which comes about to what you mentioned. This is why master planning is, the element of master planning is so important, because we have to become masters of this dynamic environment of all these things happening simultaneously. We have to be able to gain control, to bring all these elements to work together, to go into now what we call the diagram of life distribution. The diagram of life distribution. But if we didn't get the foundation of definition, and if we didn't get the element of structures, then the diagram of life distribution has a problem. There's a problem when we come to the diagram of life distribution. And the diagram of life distribution is how it's our health, it's our wealth, it's our relationships, and our appointments. Those 4 basic structures. our health, our wealth, our relationships, and our appointments. It's our health, and when you talk about health, there is 9 different functions that are going to come out of health. And the same cycle is repeated in our wealth, in our relationships, and in our appointments. And let me just okay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead quickly.
Yeah, well, it's just that it for in each area for us to now to build those those structures, it's spiritual, psychological, physiological, talking about control and maturity. It's spiritual, it's psychological, it's biological, it's personal, it is social, it is financial, it is environmental, and this is the world around us in which we're operating. But when we do understand these components, then we can master. We become masters.
All right. Well, you've said a lot there, Peter, but I want to take 2 points that you would have made, and I want to link it back to a statement that Shivani would have made, and then we're going to have her give a feedback, and then we're going to begin to wrap up. You spoke about foundational definitions and conflicts of definitions, and I want to just to think about that, Shivani and Peter. And we also spoke about the gang chart, and we talk about how it is introduced to the organization. It can be introduced in a command and control approach, or it can be introduced from an empathetic approach. Now, what I want to table here is that if definitions are right, the repeating of the socialization of what the gang chart represent in the organization, you shouldn't have to do it. And let me put it this way. The place for you to understand the definitions of gang chart should not necessarily be the workplace, because it would take years not just to understand the gang chart. It will take weeks, months, years to understand the ecosystem behind the gang chart, which is the project management execution. My belief is that the place to learn and define these definitions, which should be universal principles, should be in the classroom. Shabani, what if I'm to say to you that the gang chart to me is one of the most detailed outline of how the project must be executed by day. You have a daily breakdown of the project execution. And all you need to do is to look at that based on your expertise within the project management cycle and extract your specific role, because the entire chart may not be related to everyone at the same time, but it tells you that, hey, foundation has to be laid on day 1 to day 2, so electrical engineer don't have to be there. All right. So before you lay the foundation, you might have to say we have to tie steel, because steel has to be placed into the foundation, but it tells you specific things. What if I to say that body of knowledge should be learned in the classroom? So in the organization, all I need to do is to present this Gantt chart to you, and you're supposed to light up, because it gives you a detailed outline of how your tasks fit in to the project execution process. I would love to have your feedback.
So the Gantt chart is a very great tool. It could assist you to see the entire big picture. However, it is a very complicated tool when you want to look at everything all together. So you now will have to extract. So it does show you every single thing that everybody got to do, how you design the Gantt chart. Obviously, you have to put in data, garbage in, garbage out, as we say. So you have to put in the data in order to get what you want from the Gantt chart. But the Gantt chart can be, I mean, if it's a construction project, it can be really a lot of different things. So yes, we can present the Gantt chart. You can put it into milestones, and each of the subject matter expert can get their particular milestone and then start to plan it granularly. The granular part now, and they can plan, and we can plan what we want. But if you put in every single item on the Gantt chart, every single thing, you can't, everybody wouldn't be able, it will complicate it even more.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that, Shivani. But the point that I really want to amplify, that probably I didn't say it just now, is there, if one has to be mentor and school about Gantt chart in the organization itself, does it say to you that the socialization environment that Peter was referring to, that helps you to define,
Wasn't done.
it wasn't done? Does
Yeah,
it
of
mean that
course.
there's weaknesses there? Okay,
Of
great.
course, I agree. I
But
agree.
that comes back to the point. That
Yeah,
comes back to some of the argument you would say, make academic make sense,
yeah,
because you're
because
paying a
I
lot of
agree.
money to learn it, and then you presented a gang chart, but then you, Shivani, you now got to spend perhaps a couple of hours socializing, and to really educate people on the gang chart is a lot of work, Shivani. It's not a day work because
So,
it's so many moving parts.
no, well, you just said it too, right? I'll teach you how to do a Gantt chart. And you everything that I just said here, you didn't understand that there were the different types of schedules, a master schedule, and how to do it. So in a training session, it comes back to, are people practicing the practical elements? Are you teaching them how to do it practically? So I can give you and say,
Yeah.
okay, this is a Gantt chart, this is everything that you have to do. But then when you go into the world of work, you will just say, okay, well, this is a Gantt chart, this is how Gary taught it to me, or this is how Peter taught it to me. But then you realize, but wait now, it's so complicated. Why didn't you tell me this? Why didn't you do this? Because in a training classroom, a lot of people, I don't know if people don't know, I don't know, but we'll talk about that, right? But I do agree. Yeah, I do agree that we
But
need to.
Shivani, yeah, and you made another strong point there, Shivani. Very often people learn in the theory, and it's not enough.
Mhm.
When you come to the organization, it's not about the theory, it's about the practice.
Yeah.
But if you're not trained to convert the theory into practice from the academic setting, it makes it difficult for you now to apply it. So that perhaps may bring some justification why your workload has to be increased to help them to understand the practical aspect of interpreting a gang chart and coordinating activities around it. Great point. Love it. Love it. All right, Shivani, I must say it's always great having you here, but I'm going to come to Peter and then I'm going to come back to you to give your closing thoughts on today's program. Peter, I would love to have your closing thoughts on today's topic, which is essential habits for leaders, essential leadership habits for business and for life. And I trust that the public had a lot to take away today as we navigate. And of course, Peter is a theologist, so of course he will give you things from a theological standpoint, which is important. So, Peter, all to you.
Well, basically, Gary, is that life in closing. When we what are we talking about when we talk about life? In habits, it's so dynamic. The spectrum of what we're talking about, it is so demanding and very exciting, but at the same time, we look at life and what we see happening in and around us on a day by day basis. Sometimes it's we leave from this environment speaking here so beautifully, but then when we turn on the news, when we look at what is happening in the world, it can become so daunting. um, it can add a weight, on how life is being managed. And the management of life, it is not something that an individual Well, as far as your personal life is concerned, it is important for you to manage you, to develop as a human being, to evolve your human um, maturity. You know, it's important for us to do that, and then to evolve into the various levels or dimensions by which life operates into, you know, working with our families or that intimate group of individuals, families, and friends. And then that rolls over into the broader segment of community, and then into the corporate settings by which we operate at each level. But all of that here, all of that ought to be, the focus ought to be that we are solving problems. Because if we do not have that as the framework by which we are building habits, if we do not have that framework when we are going to work, if we do not have that framework when we are going to church, if we do not have that framework even in our personal existence with ourselves, then conflicts. And just in closing, in what I said a while ago, understanding what life is, you know, the basic understanding what life is. Why? Let me say this ends. Because life is designed to protect itself. And this is why you know, all the chaos sometimes because life is designed to flush anything out of it that is not adding to the bottom line of life. Life is designed for the preservation, the protection, and the propagation of itself. So if we do not come in alignment with life as a person, as an individual, if I do not come in alignment with life itself, life is designed to protect itself from me. So within that, the Human Growth Master Plan program, we empower individuals to understand purpose. And why we do what we do is because we want to become in alignment in life. If we come in alignment with life, life flows, life protects us because life knows that we are a part of its bottom line and we are not a cog in it. We're not a cog. We're not an individual who is adding to the diminishing, causing life to diminish.
All right, thanks for that share, Peter. Shivani, all to you.
I can't close off because there's so much more to say, right? So I will say
I,
until we see again. Until we see again, right? Leadership, habits to reform. We spoke about empathy, command and control, and servant leadership. But until we see again.
all right, thanks for that closing remarks, Shivani. So I trust the general public. I want to thank the LinkedIn community. I can see a number of persons are looking at the program from LinkedIn, so I want to say a big shout out to you. I want to say, hello to also those who are in YouTube. And over the last few months, we had over 40,000 persons who have subscribed to a few of our channels, and I want to thank you from the depths of my heart for that. Remember also that if you need access to capital, you can go to my pitch deck 101 LLC page, and you can click on what we do. When you click on what we do, that is shown on the screen right now, you scroll down to referral links, and you have some of our financial partners that you can connect with. You can connect with MB Capital, and MB Capital is BC at work. Today they have allocated over $148 million to different businesses. And we also have Fund and Grow. And today, Fund and Grow, they have allocated over $1 billion US dollars. We're talking US dollars here, to multiple businesses. So if you ever need capital to grow and scale your business, I want to encourage you to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to connect you with the right people to ensure that you're getting access to the type of funding to take your vision to the next stage. I want to thank Peter for always showing up and helping us to see things from a different perspective. He is deep in theology, and very often we may not see that empathetic approach to leadership. He helps to see what's happening in the world, and he always, bring that to surface. So thanks for that share, Peter. Peter is also focusing on the Human Growth Initiative. His focus is to really help humanity to reach the richness of their potential and also to leave a legacy in that process. I want to thank Shivani for always showing up here also and contributing to the conversation. Shivani is multi-talented. She is a lecturer, one of the top universities in the Caribbean. She's a serial entrepreneur and she's very passionate about project management. So I want to thank each and every one of you guys for being here today. And I look forward to for tomorrow, same time, 7 a.m. EST, for another broadcast of Habit and Money. To the general public, today is Monday. Thank God it's Monday. So do enjoy your week ahead of you. Thanks for showing up, guys.